This is Artful Discourse, your weekly escape into the vibrant world of creativity, culture, and intellectual exploration. I'm your host, Benjamin Kirk, and I invite you to join me on a journey through the rich tapestry of human thought and the beating heart of artistic expression at Fresno State's College of Arts and Humanities. On November 16th and 17th, the Department of Linguistics is hosting the 2024 Western Conference on Linguistics at Fresno State. The Western Conference of Linguistics, also known as WCOL, is an international conference focused on aspects of theoretical and descriptive linguistics. The conference is free and open to the public, and since the pandemic has been entirely virtual, joining us today is Professor of Linguistics, Dr. Chris Golston. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks.
And also with him is his student, Keria Collelouri. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
All right. And it's a little intimidating because I'm with linguists, and I want to be sure I say this right. So, and welcome to you as well. Now, Keria, what's your major, and when do you expect to graduate?
So my major is linguistics. I'm a master's student of linguistics, and I'm expected to graduate next semester.
What was your undergrad in?
My undergraduate, I did linguistics and astrophysics. I did a double major.
Wow. And what are you looking to do in the future?
Right now, I'm applying for a PhD program, so depending on how all that goes, hopefully getting PhD, continuing to work in linguistics.
Do you have an ultimate goal?
I just want to keep working in research with linguistics. I really enjoy it, really passionate about it.
Okay. Well, right on. And Dr. Goldston, what is the Western Conference on Linguistics?
Well, it's a general linguistics conference, which means that we deal with any aspects of language structure, how any language is put together. And there's like 7,000 of those, so there's a lot of languages to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing this since, I guess, 1988. This conference has been hosted here.
And why is this conference important, to students, to the community, to linguistic scholars?
Yeah, well, for students, it brings out, well, let's start for the people that come, actually. So it used to be a lot more Americans, and then during the pandemic, we made it all online, and we started getting people from like Africa and South America that couldn't used to afford to come here.
Mm-hmm.
So when the pandemic went away, we asked everybody if they'd be okay with having it face-to-face, and lots of people said, well, okay, but we won't be able to come anymore because it's too expensive to fly to California from Benin or whatever, right? So we thought, well, let's be the cheap international conference where people can come here from wherever, and it literally costs nothing. And then that's sort of our specialty, that most linguistics conferences are not like that because you have to get there to Paris or whatever. So that's the really great thing. We have people from all over the world, literally. And what's good about that for students is they get to, hear people from all over the world, literally from Cambridge and Stanford to wherever.
Yeah. And I did see on the website, as you mentioned, the proceedings going back to about 1989, but you said that was actually session 2 is what it said. So
Yeah, I think 1988 was the first one. My first conference talk, I think, was at WeCall, and it was either 88 or 80. It must be 89 because they're published.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to publish them hard copy, and now we publish them online.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another nice thing for a lot of beginning scholars. This is their first, publication, in the sense that anybody in the world can get a hold of it in written form, and that's nice too.
And you have those records going all the way back as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, Keria, I'm told you've been a key part of organizing this conference. So can you tell me a little bit about what you've been working on?
Yeah, so what I've been doing is the main first part was going through the abstracts after each professor kind of goes through, decides what's accepted. I went through on a kind of different site where I could go through, mark them as accepted, and then kind of start sending out the emails to these people, say, so-and-so, you're accepted, and then sending out like, we need extra information. This is what the program is looking like. Things like that. That's kind of mainly what I've been doing.
So really kind of the nuts and bolts of putting this thing together.
Mm.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about the conference. Dr. Goldstein and talked about it, people coming from all over the world. Do you have some statistics on that?
Yeah, so we have people coming from 21 countries over 5 continents from 46 universities, which for an overall of 55 presentations. And the countries we have represented are Korea, Hungary, Japan, Brazil, Canada, Poland, Crete/Greece, Taiwan, England, Norway, China, India, Spain, the US, Pakistan, Nigeria, Belgium, Macedonia, Turkey, Switzerland, and Italy.
That's a pretty good amount of countries. That makes
Mhm.
it pretty fairly international. I think there's what 180 something countries in the world, so you got a pretty good chunk of them.
Yeah.
So what have some of the biggest challenges you've had working on this?
Um, yeah, so far it's been a pretty smooth process, thankfully. But a lot of it is just kind of, I guess, making sure everyone's on the same page because it's largely virtual, making sure that we all know kind of who's who's doing what, that all of the presenters know what's going on. I guess actually the biggest problem is just making sure we can all get into all of the things with like two-factor authentication.
And for guests who visit, is there a place to sign up for it
Uh, like
On the website.
on the website?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the website is Weecol, WECOL .weebly.com. And you can also get that from the Linguistics website on the Fresno State website, which is kind of a long address, so I'll skip that one. But
Mhm.
if you Google Fresno State Linguistics, you can click on news and events, and it'll take you. There's a link right to that website, to the WeCol website. Um, what have been some of the exciting things about working on this?
Yeah, I was mostly really excited just to see just what everyone is doing because usually with a conference you can't see like every single talk because they'll be in like different rooms or I
Hmm.
guess virtual rooms for this one. So just being able to kind of see the abstracts that everyone is doing and being like, oh, this sounds super interesting, and just seeing what everyone is working with, especially because it's so international, seeing what all these different places are working on.
And that's kind of a good point because you said you had 55 presentations
Hmm.
over 2 days, so there's no way any one person could see all of them.
No.
So how many do you have going on at any given time?
I think right now it's 3.
3.
So 3 at the same time.
Okay. And just all day for is it go into the evening as well?
Yeah, pretty much it goes to like 3 or a little further,
3:30.
3:30.
Yeah. And so what have you learned so far from organizing such a big event? I know the event hasn't happened yet, but
Mhm.
it seems like kind of a pretty big learning experience just putting something to get this big together.
Yeah, I learned a lot about, I guess, kind of just how all of the background work that goes into, putting together a conference like this. Just everything that everyone has to do, all of the logistics, making sure, especially with an international conference, making sure that everyone has a good time because the time zones are so different.
Hmm.
So making sure that we're not having people presenting at like their 1 a.m. Um, and just learning all of the work that goes through putting together something like this. And yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the keynote speakers and what they're going to be presenting. And are there any with their presentations and the presentations that are coming in? Are there any kind of themes that are emerging?
I guess I can do that.
Yeah.
So Martin Kramer is actually a German who lives in Norway and specializes in Italian. So that's nice. Uh, and he'll be talking about sounds in languages. So this is called phonology, but it's just consonants and vowels and syllables and junk like that.
Hmm.
Uh, and then Martina Wilczko is, I believe, German, living in Spain. She just came from Canada to get there. And she works on a lot of native languages, native to regions of Canada, actually.
Yeah.
Uh, and she's a syntactician, which means she specializes in words and sentences. So we usually do this at We Call. We have people that work on the sound part and then on the meaning part, if you will, of language. So we have sort of the two ends kind of covered. There's lots of other areas of linguistics, and those are covered in the talks. But the reason we picked those two, besides their eminence in the field and interest in, we're interested in the research they do, was basically because they do the opposite ends of things
Right.
in linguistics.
And Martina, is she also working with? I have a note here that she also works with what it means to kind of interact with machines. Is that
That's not my understanding.
okay?
She is currently working on a book on how emotions are expressed through language, which is a very, in my view, weird and out there topic. Sounds central, but it's weird. I don't know if she's going to talk about that. Uh, she usually just talks about sentence structure and stuff across languages, especially less studied languages like Blackfoot,
Mm-hmm.
spoken in the northern U.S. and Canada.
And you yourself are an expert in a lot of um, Native American languages.
Yeah, well, like three, but
Three.
but that's better than none.
I thought the
So,
list on your website was a little bit longer than three.
well, those are ones I work on, but nobody's going to
Yeah.
ask me questions about most of them because there's better experts than me.
Right.
But me and the rest of the team here, so Brian Agbayani and Niken Adisasmeto Smith, are probably at this point the world experts on Chukchansi, spoken here natively. And we're up there on the family of languages called Yokuts. So we've been working on that for 12 or 15 years pretty intensively. And so at this point, we know more about those languages than most linguists will ever.
Now you talked about kind of the two ends of the spectrum with the keynote speakers. Can you tell me a little bit more about their work? A little bit more about? I mean, you talk about syntax. Like one thing that kind of caught my ear was the sentence structures across languages, and maybe expound a little bit more on that. That sounds kind of interesting to me, just as far as what are the differences and similarities between sentence structures across languages.
Yeah, so going to Martina Wilczko's work, this is something I'm really interested in. The general story in syntax is that the most important part of a sentence is the time part. So that's called tense. So whether something's past, present, or future. So that's generally seen as being the crucial part in English sentences and most Indo-European languages. And she points out that there's some languages that don't have tense. They just in grammar.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have a past tense marker or a word like will that tells you this is in the future. So she points out those languages have syntax too, and it better not be based on tense because they don't mark tense. So she tries to explore how those languages are structured if they're not marking everything around tense.
Mm.
And she proposes with a colleague that those languages, instead of focusing around what time it is that we're talking, they focus on the spatial area that we're talking in, like close to me or close to you, this little group we have here, or in who is involved, like me versus you versus somebody else. So she tries to, working across languages. This is what we all do in linguistics: is figure out how languages differ and how they're the same. But we're all always in that back and forth of what's special about a language and what's special about human languages generally, and what do they share, and so on.
Yeah. And it sounds like with Martin Kramer, he's more focused on the individual sounds, is what it
Yeah.
looks like. Kind of the syllable structure.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
sure. He's also been working more recently. Well, again, he's an expert on Italian, so he literally wrote the book called The Phonology of Italian from either Oxford or Cambridge. But so that's his sort of language specialty. But his area specialty, and especially what he's been working on recently, is how do you get linear order? So if I say, I don't know, cantaloupe, the K sound has to come before the P sound, and the A has to come before the O. And so there's a question of how does that get spelled out? What part of your brain does that in language? We used to think about it as like a phone number. So I don't know, my mom's old phone number was 505-345-2083. But humans don't have a lot of good memory for that kind of thing.
Right.
So you couldn't tell me my mom's phone number now, although I just told you what it was.
Hmm.
And that's because it's like 10 digits. And nobody can hold 10 digits in their mind. But a word like California has 10 consonants and vowels in it. So it turns out that uh, figuring out how actual human brains store something as long as California without freaking out over it, like, oh my God, this is like a really long phone number, uh, gets to be tricky. So there must be something special about sounds that allows lots and lots of long strings to be encoded in the brain really easy. Because little kids at 3 can learn a word like California without crying, but they can't learn telephone numbers. Right. So there must be something special in how the brain stores sounds that's different than the way we store, say, strings of numbers. And Martin's been working on that,
Mm.
hosting some conferences where we all go to Tromsø in the in the Arctic Circle to hear about this.
But it does take children quite a while to learn
Yeah, it
those words and those longer words,
takes
and
about 6 years for a
yeah.
kid to learn a language, but the estimate for how long it takes, how many times it takes for a kid to learn a word is about once.
Mm.
So if you tell a kid, blick or whatever, they're going to pick that blick up immediately. Like at one hearing, they'll know what it is. It's
Okay.
super fast. There's lots and lots, there's thousands, tens of thousands of words to learn, but they learn about one every 2 waking hours when they're young. So
Yeah.
every day of
So,
the
so it is different than like the phone number back in the day.
completely different. Yeah.
I had a little piece of paper that I carried around with me that had all my phone numbers on it.
Yeah. But you didn't have the names of your friends because those were on a piece of paper because you
Yeah.
just memorized those quite easily.
Right. Oh, good point. Good point. Interesting. Now, Kira, is there area of linguistics that you enjoy that you're focused on?
Yeah, so what I work on is I work with Irish, which is language spoken in Ireland. Right now, my focus is on the like grammatical gender system of Irish. So that's like, a noun can be either masculine or feminine, like in Spanish. So my focus right now is on that and kind of how that system has been changing because in Ireland, obviously the language that most people speak is English. And so the Irish speakers, a lot of them also speak English, and that kind of is affecting how Irish is changing over time. So I focus on the change over time specifically of the
Mm.
gender system.
Is that something you're looking forward to going into your PhD program as well?
Yeah, I'm looking to stay within kind of working in Irish.
Okay. So, what are you excited about with this conference? Are there any speakers you're looking forward to that kind of deal with something you're interested in?
Yeah, I think the one that stood out is there's someone who's doing think it's some kind of like phonological like looking at the sounds of speakers of like I think Dublin was one of them, but different UK kind of dialects in Irish. And because that's kind of what I work in, I was excited to see kind of how that turned out. Um, but yeah, a lot of them seem really interesting. There was one I remember, it's kind of unrelated, but that stood out was about a certain vowel in like Nigerian English, and it's called like "It Does Exist," and I was like, oh, I'm curious to see kind of what the story behind that is.
Is there anything besides those? Is there anything else particular that you're looking forward to at the conference?
Yeah, I think I'm just looking forward to kind of seeing all of these talks I just saw the like written parts of and just seeing them fully realized and seeing all of these people and what they're doing and maybe, being able to ask questions and kind of pick their brains for things that, they specialize in versus stuff that I don't specialize in. I'm just excited to see what everyone's going to be talking about.
Kind of expanding your
Yeah.
repertoire, so to speak. All right, and Dr. Goldston, anything you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm really looking forward to I've been a huge fan of Martina Wilczko's work for a long time now, and we've tried to get her here a number of times, and she was either moving or busy or whatever. So I'm really happy that she's finally able to come this time from Spain. She used to be in Canada. That was easier to manage the time differences, but now she's in Spain, but she's going to do it, and yeah, I'm just really looking forward to that talk.
Yeah. All right. So, if anybody would like to attend the conference, again, you can find that information to register on the website, and that's Weecol, WECOL .weebly, WEEBLY.com, and we'll have a link to that in our show notes on the podcast side of things. But I just want to see, is there anything I missed? Anything you'd like to add about the conference?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
Got
think
it all
so.
covered.
All right. So I do have a few more minutes. So I want to talk to you, Chris, a little bit about the work you've been doing with, just kind of want to get an update, the work you've been doing with indigenous languages. Is there anything new in that area that you've been working on?
Well, we just had a really cool conference here last weekend called the California Indian Conference
Mm-hmm.
that professors so Lise Oliver and Ken Hansen put on.
And that's out of the College of Social Sciences, right?
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
actually yes.
Yeah.
So they're anthropology and well, anyways,
Yeah. Okay.
yes. So that was cool because we had it focused on Native American languages spoken in California, but there were also people from like Arizona talking about Hopi and
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of other things. And we gave two talks. Our research team here gave two talks. One was me and a school teacher up in Oakhurst who's a tribal member too, a Chukchansi tribal member. And the really awesome thing that she just managed to accomplish is, uh, you need to get 2 years of a foreign language to get into a UC or a CSU,
Mm-hmm.
and now and there's a specific list of languages that count.
Right.
So you can do French and Latin and Spanish and whatever. Well, now Chukchansi's on that list.
Wow.
And there's not a lot of native languages. There's really very small number of native languages on that list. So we're really proud of her work. Her name's Kim Lawhon. Again, she lives up near Chukchansi. And that was a really incredible accomplishment. So that was probably the best thing to happen to me this year was seeing, not that I did it, but watching her do that. And then like last year, the elder that we work with, Holly Wyatt, she was given an honorary doctorate
Mm-hmm.
here at Fresno State, and that was also a really awesome experience for
Yeah.
us. And past that, I'm writing what's called a tribal grammar, so that's like a grammar that people like Kim can work with to make teaching materials, and tribal members can look at if they want to understand how their language is put together. Because the technical grammars that linguists work with are just impossible. You look at them, and I mean, normal people look at them and can't get anything out of them. So I sort of try to translate what we figured out in our 15 years of working on this and what's been known about these languages. They've been studied for 100 years, the
Yeah.
Yokuts languages. So, but that information needs to be made accessible to normal people so that tribal members can understand what's going on. So I've been working on that, and I'm now on volume 3 of the tribal grammar. We're trying to get that put into good shape so that Kim can get second year Chukchansi accepted at the UCs and CSUs.
Now, is that something you've been working with Holly on to
Yeah.
create that? Yeah.
Yeah, for again 15 years or
Right.
it's been a while.
And it's really something because those languages are nearly gone. There's only a few speakers left,
Yep.
right? Yeah. So to be able to document these and keep it for future and teach the children, it
Yeah.
sounds like, how to
Yeah,
speak these
children and
languages.
adults. So
And
they're going to
adults.
have, adult classes. Kim actually teaches sort of junior high and high school age now. And it turns out some recent research out of MIT has shown that you can actually learn a language up until, pretty damn well up until you're 18. But it takes like 6 years to do. So that means you need to be starting when you're 12 if you want to be finished while, you can still learn a language. And that's exactly the age range that Kim works with. So this is sort of a new perspective on thing. Ideally, children learn language in the home when they're growing up as babies, but that isn't happening anymore with many native languages, with most native languages. So the second best thing to do is teach them in school. But to do that, you need materials that are designed for language learning classes. Like if you had Spanish or whatever, you had a dictionary and a grammar book and exercises, and Kim is making all that stuff as we speak.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Chris Goldstein and Keria Collelouri. I'm so sorry. I'm stumbling on that a little bit. And I want to thank you both for joining us today. And we're really looking forward to this conference. And we'll see you next week for another edition of Artful Discourse. Artful Discourse is a production of the College of Arts and Humanities at California State University, Fresno. The Dean is Dr. Honora Chapman. This program is written, directed, and produced by me, Benjamin Kirk, the college's communication specialist. The theme song for Artful Discourse is Maiden Voyage by Fresno State music professor Benjamin Boone from his album, Joy. More information about his music can be found at benjaminboone.com. Special thanks to KFSR and FSR Underground General Manager Julie Lindahl for making this show possible. You can learn more about the College of Arts and Humanities and find an archive of our shows at our website, cah.fresnostate.edu, or on our blog, fresnostatecah.com.